A California congresswoman represents Los Angeles. Los Angeles is hosting 8 World Cup matches, and yesterday she said something that no elected official close to this tournament should probably be saying 5 days before it opens. We thought, oh, you won't be able to buy a hotel, get a hotel room, and then all of a sudden there were all of these hotel rooms that were available. Tickets plummeted. Representative Sidney Camel-Legger-Dove, 5 days from kickoff, describing the gap between what her city was promised and what arrived with the same flat candor you use when something hasn't gone the way you expected and there's no point pretending otherwise. That quote, published by Spectrum News at 5 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday, is the most honest single sentence anyone with official proximity to this tournament has said out loud, and it opens 3 separate doors: the legal door, the financial door, and the revolt door. All 3 are wide open today, June 6, 2026. Let's go through each one. The legal story first, because this one has moved the furthest and fastest. On May 27th, the Attorneys General of New York and New Jersey issued formal subpoenas to FIFA. Not letters, not requests, subpoenas, legal instruments compelling FIFA to produce internal documents about its ticketing practices at MetLife Stadium, where 8 matches, including the World Cup final, are scheduled. The New Jersey AG described what fans experienced as a gauntlet of confusion, fake scarcity, and impossibly high prices. The New York AG said no one should be manipulated into paying sky-high prices for seats, and that fans should be able to trust that the tickets they purchase will be the ones they receive. That last part refers to something specific and documented. FIFA added new ticketing zones after some fans had already purchased. Category 1 buyers were reassigned to Category 2 sections. Different location, different price bracket, same non-refundable transaction. The investigation is examining whether this constitutes a violation of consumer protection law. Newsweek reported this week that FIFA abandoned price caps for matches in the United States and Canada for 2026, a deliberate policy decision. An analysis found that the lowest available price has dropped in recent weeks for 76 of the 78 U.S. matches. In almost half of group stage games, tickets are now available on the resale market for less than FIFA's own face value. The dynamic pricing model that was supposed to capture maximum demand has produced a resale market where the floor has collapsed, and the fans who bought early at the prices FIFA set are sitting on non-refundable tickets worth less than they paid. FIFA has not issued a substantive public response to the subpoenas. The investigation is ongoing and will run through and beyond the tournament. Now the revolt, because this story has a new dimension that the international football media has not fully covered. The Globe and Mail published a piece last week with a line that deserves to sit in the record. It said that after over a dozen cities dropped out of bidding for the 2026 World Cup, and after hosts such as Los Angeles publicly expressed frustration about negotiations with the Soccer Federation, FIFA has softened its stance. It has begun, under pressure, to share a little bit more of the billions it makes off the World Cup. Read that carefully. FIFA softened its stance under pressure after over a dozen cities dropped out. That detail, the dropout list, is the one that provides context for everything that followed. Chicago, Minneapolis, Glendale. They looked at FIFA's terms and walked away. The cities that stayed in have spent years discovering why the cities that left made a reasonable decision. The Independent documented the consequences in December. 11 U.S. host cities facing a collective shortfall of at least $250 million. Some so desperate for commercial revenue that they're pitching local dry cleaners and mechanics for sponsorship. FIFA's own contracts prevent cities from doing deals with any company whose product category might compete with a FIFA primary sponsor, so no local convenience stores because of McDonald's, no local soft drinks because of Coca-Cola. The perimeter is so tight that the local businesses that would normally be natural partners for a city hosting a major event are either locked up or excluded. The phrase that sources gave to the Independent for what they were experiencing, the worst deal in FIFA World Cup history. That phrase did not come from outside critics. It came from people inside the host city ecosystem, people who wanted this to work, people who have spent years preparing for it.
And the revolt now has an additional financial dimension that emerged this week. The federal security grant, $625 million allocated to World Cup security, is still being lobbied for, according to The Independent. The average share per city is $56.8 million. That figure, the reporting makes clear, won't come close to meeting costs for several cities. Houston and Atlanta have performed relatively well in the host city sponsorship program. Very few others have made meaningful progress. The result, fan festivals are being cut back. The daily operations cities promised their communities are being scaled down because the costs of delivering them without the commercial framework to support them are simply too high. Now, the shortfall, which is actually 3 shortfalls layered on top of each other.
The first is the direct financial shortfall we just described. $250 million across 11 cities, covering the gap between what it costs to host and what FIFA's contract framework returns to them. The second is the tourism shortfall. Spectrum News reported yesterday that attendance will likely be much lower than previously projected. The World Economic Forum confirmed hotel rates are down by 1/3 from Atlanta to San Francisco. Baird Equity Research revised its revenue per available room projection from 75 to 100 basis points down to 25 to 50. The reason given? Hesitancy from foreign travelers, the 14% drop in European flight bookings, the 75-country visa processing halt, the fans from 4 qualified nations who can't come. All of it showing up in hospitality industry numbers that don't match the projections that justified the investment. The third is the trust shortfall, and this one is harder to put a dollar figure on. The Seton Hall Sports Poll published on June 4th showed a 17-point drop in American soccer fan enthusiasm for the U.S. as a World Cup host in a single year. 1 in 5 American soccer fans believes the USMNT will make the round of 16. Ticket interest among soccer fans has fallen 10 points in 6 months. That survey is not measuring something abstract. It's measuring whether the tournament landed the way it was supposed to land with the domestic audience it was supposed to win over. And the answer, right now, 5 days before kickoff, is that enthusiasm has measurably declined, not across the board, not irreversibly, but specifically and documentably in the metrics that matter most for a host nation tournament. Here is what all 3 shortfalls add up to. The 2026 World Cup arrives 5 days from its opening ceremony as the most legally scrutinized, financially strained, commercially disappointing, domestically underwhelming major sporting event in American history. The subpoenas are real. The shortfall is documented. The revolt, quiet, conducted through public statements and newspaper sources rather than boycotts or withdrawals, is audible to anyone paying attention. Yet, the football is happening. The squads are named. Messi is in Argentina's 26. Yamal is fit for Spain. France are picking up the pieces after their Ivory Coast loss and will be ready. The USMNT squad, Pulisic, Balogun, McKennie, Adams, Reyna, is the most talented in the program's history. Tonight, they played Germany in Chicago in their final warm-up, a match that would have been the draw of the tournament in any group stage, happening as a friendly 5 days before the real thing starts. Whatever is in the legal files of the New York AG's office, whatever the hotel occupancy data shows for Kansas City or Boston, whatever the Frontier Center for Public Policy says about the fiscal disaster for Canadian taxpayers, when that Germany-US match kicks off tonight, none of it will be in the building with the players. The football doesn't carry the shortfall. It never has. That's been the consistent reality of every tournament surrounded by noise. The sport finds its own level once it begins. And at this level, 48 nations, 104 matches, the best players on earth, it tends to find a very high one. The question is whether the tournament leaves behind something other than memories, whether the host cities that signed the worst deal in World Cup history get something beyond the bill, whether the fans who were priced out and misled and locked out feel that the sport they love was worth the organization running it. Those questions don't get answered on the pitch. They get answered in audit reports and legal filings and post-tournament economic surveys that land in late 2026 and early 2027.
But the football answers its own question starting June 11th, and that answer, whatever else is happening, is going to be worth watching. Do you think FIFA will face real consequences for how this tournament was managed, legal, financial, or reputational, after the football ends on July 19th? Or does the sport's commercial dominance mean the organization simply absorbs it and moves on? Leave it in the comments. If this gave you the full picture, hit the like button. Subscribe if you want every angle of this tournament covered properly. We're here all the way to the final. 5 days. Then the football takes over.